Hey guys, today we're reacting to Watch Mojo's top 20 PlayStation 1 games of all time, and we want to thank Damo for the request today.
Number 20, Driver.
Okay, before we get further into Driver, very good game, lots of amazing police chases. I think as far as 3D driving games go, Driver was definitely ahead of the curve. Problem was most people didn't actually get to see the main game because of the infamous tutorial level that was at the start, I guess you could call it. Very difficult to get past. Most casual gamers weren't going to put up with it, honestly.
Driver may have an infamously challenging tutorial,
There
but
you
that
go.
doesn't change the fact that everything that comes afterwards is a blast.
Yep.
The developers sought to transition big screen car chases into a video game format.
Yeah, I mean, it gives like the 70s vibes. I think actually a few of these games are actually based in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. And Parallel Lines, a future edition, also was based in modern day times. But anyway, I digress.
Something that they nailed for the time period. Players control an undercover officer investigating a criminal organization, which has them pulling various jobs in big cities. From Miami to New York City, the game's locales were surprisingly open and non-linear by 1999 standards. Although
This game's over
never
25
reached
years
the
old
same
now.
heights, Driver delivered plenty of thrills to warrant them.
Yeah, man. I might have to stream this for the community again. It's such a good game.
Number 19, Spiderman.
You know what? Spiderman is actually an incredible game. When it comes to, like, retro open-world Spider-Man games, this is it. It's very comic book. Even on the PlayStation 1, it's really fun to swing between buildings. Puzzles aren't too hard to figure out. You've got to take on guys like Venom and things like that. It's a good time. I enjoyed it. I had it on the Dreamcast and the PS1.
I gotta say, you look just like me.
One of the later
Except
PlayStation
you're
1
more
games.
angry back alley than friendly.
Nice
neighborhood.
looking.
Though Spider-Man had starred in games before, his jump to 3D was a sight to behold. It follows Spidey as he tries
Look
to
at this.
clear his name of a crime
so
he
cool.
didn't commit, all the while dealing with his famous rogues gallery. Boss fights with the
Yeah,
likes
some
of
clever,
Venom,
clever
Mysterio,
boss
and Doc
fights.
Ock
All
blew
the
every
main
comic
Spider-Man
fan's
villains
mind,
are in this
as
for the
did
most
swinging
part.
around New York City thanks to the hero's traversal mechanics. Long before Insomniac perfected the formula, developer Neversoft did a marvelous job at putting the Spider-Man experience in the palm of our hands.
Yeah, and you see, I know a lot of these early PlayStation games had really frustrating camera angles because obviously these were before we got to control the camera ourselves. But I never found Spider-Man too bad. I feel like it was really well developed.
The studio's work acted as a blueprint for many games to come.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's 3D
I was
done
on
right,
saving the
that's for
world.
sure.
Number 18, Oddworld, Abe's
Ah,
That's me. My name is Abe. I was Employee of the Year.
so Oddworld is basically a puzzle game, I guess, disguised inside a platforming game. You have to do all sorts of different puzzles like hitting switches and avoiding guards and things like that to traverse many different levels. A little bit of a hidden mission, I guess you could say message in this game as well. Pretty deep. I mean, Abe here is working in the factory and is just one of many cogs in the wheel. And he's trying to break free of the Matrix, so take through that information as you will.
Now I'm dead meat.
During a time where 3D was the next big direction for games to go in,
This is
some
a nice
developers
looking
still
game
proved
too.
they could give players an engaging experience from a 2D perspective. The first game in the Oddworld series follows Abe, an alien known as a Madokan, as he tries to free his people from their vicious
Nice
rule.
cutscenes in this
Through a
one too.
combination of puzzle solving and stealth, Abe sneaks and leads his compatriots through traps, enemies, and other obstacles.
Yeah. You know, I think it was very brave to do a 2D game in a very heavily focused 3D era. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, you even see on Steam today, if you're going to do a 2D game, just make sure it's better than everyone else's 2D game. And I think at the time, this was definitely one of the standard bearers.
Each screen you conquer feels more satisfying than the last, in tandem with its art direction and graphics.
Oh, you can use your
Oddworld's
buddies to
gameplay
help
made it
you in this
unique
as
to
well.
many
You have to rescue
platformers
them,
of the
don't you? It's
era.
been so long since
My
I've played
quest
this.
was completed.
Was
I
very
expected
good at
to
it.
rest.
Puzzles are not my
Then
strong
the
point.
big face revealed
I think that
the
deserves to be on the
intent
list,
of my
though.
quest.
Number 17, Ape Escape.
Okay. Look, I know graphically this game looks impressive, but just because the game has good graphics doesn't mean it's a good game. I've tried to play this for my friends on the channel before. I think I had to catch things with a net or something, and then one area I had to swim in. Look, took me forever to get past. I just found the depth perception and the camera angles to be way too difficult for me to enjoy this game. However, I could be in a minority. I know a lot of other people love Ape Escape, so just let me know what you think in the comments. Not for me, though.
Game around an entirely new control scheme can
This
be
guy,
hard,
he thinks he's
but
Luke
Japan's
Skywalker.
Studio knocked it out of the park with Ape Escape. Sony released the first DualShock controller, defined by its twin analog sticks, after the PlayStation, and this game was the first to require it. Simple yet charmingly goofy premise had players tracking
I do love the art style,
apes
though.
through time as they tried to change history. While the left stick controlled the protagonist, the right controlled his gadgets. Two
Yeah, he's got the
joysticks may
net
not
there
seem
and
like a
the
big deal
lightsaber or
today,
whatever you
but it
call
was
it.
groundbreaking back then. Thankfully, not only was it different, but a hell of a lot of fun too.
You know, and look, fair call. When it comes to 3D games, sure, I'm sure it was groundbreaking when it came out, late 90s and stuff. But at the end of the day, we're all spoilt for modern controls where we can control the camera and we can look exactly where we need to look when we want to look there. I don't think that was the case, as I said, for Ape Escape.
Yes!
Game was presented
Number
wonderfully
16,
well.
PaRappa
Oh,
the
gosh.
I see you're getting better. Kick to the limit in order to get an out.
Kick, punch, it's all in the mind. I don't remember the words, so let's continue.
While many of Sony's current-day first-party games provide sprawling worlds, rich narratives, and a cinematic style, some on its first system were decidedly weirder and sillier. PaRappa the Rapper is a perfect example.
So for those of you who don't know, this is a rhythm game. You have to match the corresponding buttons in the best timing possible to advance levels. Now, someone's going to have to help me out. I used to always be able to get good every time, but I could never hit a cool note. I never knew how to hit a cool note. I don't know if it was my timing or if I was missing a button command or what, but I would always get good. I would never ever literally get one cool command. Can someone please tell me what I was doing wrong? It's a wonderful game though, great rhythm game. Mixture of
The
reggaeton,
game's
rap,
cartoonish,
pop.
flat graphics looks something that Nintendo would put out, and even went on to inspire Paper Mario. While its visuals gave it a distinct look,
The
its
driving
gameplay
lesson level
also
is so
sets it
famous.
apart. Focusing on the titular rapping dog, players went through various performances as PaRappa tried to impress his crush.
Oh,
It may
that's
not have been
right,
the
it was like a
first
teen
rhythm
movie
game,
inside
but it
a
was the
rapping
first to
game,
gain
that's right.
mainstream appeal.
See, that's as far as I got the cooking level. I think that was like number 4.
Number 50.
Look, I tell you what though, I think that definitely deserved to be on the list. Just because I'm not good at it doesn't mean that it's not good. So. Twisted Metal 2.
There will be no safe zones this year, no places to hide. In the next 24 hours, the entire world will know my name.
The first
So I don't know what it is about me and Twisted Metal. Obviously, taking many different cars into combat and blowing each other up, as this game is, should be a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I was just never good at it, even with the cheats. Wasn't for me. Certainly understand the appeal. I'm not going to argue with it being in this list.
Twisted Metal was an action-packed joyride over.
Check out the show on TV.
In a dystopian Los Angeles, drivers competed with their vehicles of death to see who would remain standing.
Yeah, Sweet
But
Tooth
the
right
sequel
here.
did every single thing better. Twisted Metal 2 included more weapons and a larger roster.
Yeah,
giving
most of the
players
kids
even
I knew
more
played
variety in how
the
they
second one
attempted
in
to
school.
destroy their opponents. It also took its disturbing characters worldwide, adding levels that were both varied as well as much more expansive than what was in the first game. It was a joy to destroy by yourself.
It was
but
great
also
back in the
offered
day. I
plenty
think
of
there's probably other
replayability
better
with
car
multiplayer.
combat games you can play now. I'll admit I don't know what they are off the top of my head.
Number 14,
Feels a little bit dated now.
Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver.
Eternity is relentless, Razia.
Set 1500 years after the original Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver follows the vampire Raziel, who's revived as a wraith to bring justice to the vampire lord who killed him. In 1999, it was a prime action-adventure title. Its dark visuals and story sucked players in, while its simple but fun gameplay and fantastic level design kept them coming back.
Yeah, again, another game that probably doesn't hold up as well now, but was definitely the standard bearer for atmosphere back in the day. I mean, games didn't look like Soul Reaver back in 1999. It was definitely a lot of firsts in regards to that action-adventure 3D genre. And, I mean, this has had a lasting effect on people. I mean, you don't hear a lot of people playing this game now, but they always reference this as one of their best memories in the 90s. So I think it deserves to be on the list. I was not a big fan, but I respect the game.
Knights led to delays and a lack of funding. This caused some elements to be taken out and the ending to be rushed. Even still, it's a remarkable game.
Fate promises more twists before this drama.
At least the voice acting's better than in Resident Evil,
Number
hey?
13.
Spyro the Dragon.
And he's helping and
I never played a whole lot of Spyro, guys, because I always just thought this was for the little girls.
With the world's dragons cursed and turned
Does that
to
make me-
crystal, the task of freeing them
I was more of
landed
a
at
Crash
the feet of
Bandicoot
an
guy.
underdog. Sony had a couple of platforming mascots to compete with Nintendo, and
Croc was a
Spyro
pretty
was
good game
one of the
too,
coolest.
actually.
Gliding, stampeding, and fire-breathing our way through fantastical levels was a joy thanks to its wonderful controls. As 3D platformers were growing to be more expansive with their level design, it was also great just living in the game regardless of how it was played.
You know, I'll give it that. As I said, I'm not a Spyro fan. It's just a bit of a cutesy kitty, I guess you could say childlike mascot, this one. But I'm not going to lie, being in the universe and actually playing the game, yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was, as far as PlayStation 1 games went, the controls were absolutely brilliant. And they only got better as they got along, I think, overall.
Everything about it helped differentiate Spyro the Dragon in what was an extremely crowded genre at the time.
A wise dragon once told me...
Yeah, I mean, as I said, there was a game similar like Croc. Croc was pretty good.
Number 12. Chrono Cross.
Are you going to put an RPG in here sooner or later? Surprised
Whether
Chrono
or
Cross
not
made
Chrono
it.
Cross lived up to the expectations set by the bona fide SNES classic that preceded it is up for debate. But the fact remains that it's still an incredible PlayStation JRPG. As
Never
such,
finished the
players
game,
travel
I have to
between
admit,
their
so I'm not going to have
reality
too much
and
of
one
an
that is
opinion on this
vastly
one.
different, attempting to find out why they split. There isn't much
Does
here
look
that
gorgeous.
couldn't delight fans of the genre. A huge, engaging narrative, beautiful, enticing locales, 45 possible party members, plenty of secrets, and combat balance to be just challenging enough. It's no wonder reviewers praised it across the board.
You know, RPGs were certainly a generous commodity on the PlayStation 1 era, and it'd take me a long time to go through all of them. I was one of those guys that mainly favored, I guess you could say, the Final Fantasy franchise, so didn't really tap into Chrono Cross too much. But, I mean, I don't know if I would put it in the top 20 based on what I know from other people, but a very good game nevertheless.
Number 11. Crash Bandicoot.
That's the third Crash Bandicoot, isn't it?
the crystals, and I have lost my patience.
Crash's first two titles were stellar hits, and Naughty Dog managed to close out its trilogy on an exceptionally strong note. With a gang of villains teaming up to take over the world, players hopped across time periods to thwart them.
Yeah. I don't know if there's going to be more than one Crash on this list. You certainly probably could put another Crash Bandicoot game on this list. But what I liked about number 3, quite simply, is the progressive difficulty. I felt like number 3 had a really good balance of accessible levels in the beginning that progressively got harder, whereas with the original Crash Bandicoot, that was pretty much crushing your soul right from the start. So I felt like, as far as accessibility goes, number 3 was definitely one of the top choices on PS1.
With personality, due to the beautiful team up of
These
pitch-perfect
bike
design
levels
and
were
an infectious
horrendous. I used to
soundtrack.
always get stuck on them. Oh. Always got a lot of
Its
creative
difficulty
bosses in
level
this
was
too.
right on the nose for platformer fans. It had us all frantically mashing
I love the
buttons and
hybrid of
directions
levels
to
too.
narrowly avoid its
3D,
obstacles and
2D,
enemies,
flying,
where it's just right
driving.
to trip you up.
Little something everything in Crash Bandicoot, at least from the second game
We wouldn't
onwards
see this
anyway.
level of quality in Crash's mainline games for quite a while. Number 10, Vagrant Story.
This game was so cool. I never played it to completion, but I definitely love the graphics. That was the thing that stood out for me. There was a lot of
There
later
were a ton
PlayStation
of
1 games that
wonderful
came out,
RPGs on
man.
the original PlayStation, and Square put out one of the best ones. Set in a fantasy world like many others, Vagrant Story stands out with its intriguing plot and cinematic approach.
Yeah, that was the problem. The reason I couldn't play too far through this is my dad actually imported a copy of this for me from overseas, and unfortunately a lot of mine had a lot of Japanese translation in it, so it was a little bit difficult to progress as far as I would have wanted to, but I loved it still
Players
nevertheless.
control Ashley Riot, an agent of the kingdom investigating a mysterious cult.
Man,
The
look how
characters in the
nice this
story have
looks.
Fantastic
I think they're
depth,
using
as
an
does the
upscaler
combat.
here, eh?
It blends
Fair
real-time
enough.
action with strategic elements, like a risk bar that fills when you fight and affects various mechanics. The narrative begs for you to keep digging, while the challenging fights will test to see if you're
I think
willing
this is
to
pretty
keep
high
with
up
the
though. I don't know
story.
if I would have put this in the top 20. I'm not mad that it is.
Number 9. Silent Hill.
Oh, I'm glad Silent Hill's on this list.
The game that launched the beloved survival horror
was
series,
genuinely
Silent
creepy,
Hill was
man.
an impressive display on Sony's hardware. Although its distance fog may seem dated now, at the time, it helped create the haunted town's atmosphere. It was impossible to explore its mist-ridden streets or gloomy interiors without being on edge over what abomination would lunge out at us next.
Guys, I don't care what anyone says. It might be like 25 years later, but I still feel going into the school is incredibly unnerving and creeping, even now. I'm straight up, even now, I find that level to be incredibly uncomfortable.
Konami wanted us to feel helpless and alone. As we
Yep.
took Harry Mason on the hunt for his missing daughter, that's exactly what we felt.
Oh, look
Though
at
the
this
series'
stuff,
peak
man.
wouldn't come until later, this was an excellent starting point.
That's the thing with Silent Hill. They made the most of the hardware they had, and there hasn't been quite many experiences like this on that console. This is absolutely incredible. There was another really cool psychological horror called Clock Tower, but even that game wasn't as engaging as what Silent Hill is gameplay-wise. So this was incredible. You got a lot more options to explore in this one.
So you don't know anything either. Great.
Number 8. Tomb Raider.
You could leave tomorrow. Are you busy tomorrow?
The PlayStation featured many games
OG
that
Tomb
were becoming
Raider, hey?
influential
Oh,
stepping stones
gosh.
within their genres. And
I'm
the
surprised they put the
action-adventure
first one
genre owes
on.
an awful lot to Tomb Raider. The game captured the sense of
Guess you could
exploration,
start at the original.
discovery, and the thrills of going on a globe-trotting adventure. At that point, that hadn't been seen much in 3D games, if at all. Its puzzles and traps put us in deadly, yet entirely exciting predicaments.
Yeah, obviously this has been massively improved with the remaster, but this was one of the earliest games I've ever had on PlayStation 1. And back then, when I was young, I probably wouldn't have the patience for it now, but I wouldn't care if I had to repeat a level 50 times. It was even fun just to go exploring. Remember, I was probably battling the controls more than the game itself, and this is before we could do quick stop saves. So incredibly frustrating, but one of the most rewarding experiences ever when you would actually pass
And
a
they were all
cave or a
encased within
temple or whatever.
revolutionary level design.
Man, those
Among the other
dinosaurs
notable
were
gifts to
freaky
the gaming
too.
world was Lara Croft.
You
An
saw the dinosaur
endearing,
for the first
fearless
time, and that big
protagonist and a
dinosaur
natural icon
mofo.
for medium.
Thank you.
Number 7. Gran Turismo
Ah,
2.
yeah. I mean, if you're going to put any Gran Turismo game, I guess you're going to put the sequel. I mean, it had 2 discs. I think that's when you had the arcade and the simulation for the first time. I still have a physical copy, and I have to admit it's been years since I've gone back to play this version of Gran Turismo, but massively more comprehensive than the first one, a little bit better looking, and I think if you even went back to play this now, you wouldn't be disappointed. It's a wonderful driving sim. Plus, you got the classic 90s sports cars,
Everything
too.
about Gran Turismo 2 still seems impressive today. Its graphics were the pinnacle of what the PlayStation could
Yeah,
offer,
they were.
even if it was
That is
towards
pretty
the end of
nice
its
of
life
PS1,
cycle.
man.
It boasted 27 tracks and more than 600
I
different
love these
vehicles,
classic
a
cars, bro.
spectacular amount for a game back then. However, more important than any of its bells and whistles, it was just genuinely great to play. Though similar to the first, mechanics were honed and refined to racing perfection. The game was fast,
That's right, they
exhilarating,
introduced rally
close
into
as you
this
could
one
get
for
to
the first
high-speed
time.
races without leaving your house.
And there were some good rally games on PS1 as well. You could probably put a Colin McRae game in here, you know. I wouldn't be mad.
Number 6.
Tekken 3. I'm actually surprised. Oh, so we're already down to number 6. Jeez, I didn't realize we were that far through the list. I guess that's fair enough. I think a lot of people would consider, generally from my knowledge, either Final Fantasy VII, Metal Gear Solid, or Tekken 3 to be the 3 best games, I guess, across genres on the PlayStation 1. I'm not going to be mad that it came in at number 6. It's still a great spot in the list between the mixtures of many characters and unlockables, the separate beat-em-up mode in this, and all the other features. This is going to keep you busy for a very long time. Plus, you got more combos for the first time. You could chain more attacks together compared to the first 2 games. It just felt so much more
PlayStation
fluid.
fans got to enjoy getting ports of the arcade.
Look at how
menu
fun
on
lore
Tekken
is to
for
use
years.
even back then.
With the 3rd entry, they got one of the best fighters ever developed.
Yeah, I
along
still
with
have
some
fun
great
playing this one,
exclusive
guys,
content.
definitely.
Tekken 3 was praised for many things, including a huge roster of new characters and addictive gameplay that held your attention with ease.
They always said there's 2 types of people on this planet. People who are not arseholes and people who use Eddie Gordo.
Having it at home was a godsend. The The satisfaction of bettering yourself to conquer the computer and friends alike was supreme, due to how much depth the mechanics actually had. The console exclusive content, like the Tekken Force beat 'em up mode, were nice bonuses too. Number 5. Tony Hawk's Pro
the
Skater
second
2.
one. Oh gosh, you know what? Oh man, I played so much Tony Hawk 1 and 3. Never too much of number 2. I do have it on the HD collection, but just never dived into it too much. Probably for nostalgia reasons. But look, I'm just going to pretend it's any Tony Hawk game.
Was obsessed with skater culture. Neversoft and Tony Hawk.
Look, I'm going to let the guy speak, but let's just call it what it is. This is the ultimate party game, whether you pull out 1, 2, or 3 with friends on the PlayStation 1. I wouldn't remember what the hell I'm doing now, but it was just so rewarding to pull like a 720 or something after go. I don't even know what all the fucking moves are called, but you know, grinding and then doing a 720 and just chaining all these different moves together. Oh man, you can't beat it. It was all about bragging rights with your buddies.
The first entry was certainly a hit, but the sequel was a juggernaut, both in sales and acclaim. Every level is a flawlessly constructed playground, with tantalizing objectives and pristine
look at that, it
controls
still
to
looks
help you
nice,
chase
hey?
after them. It felt incredible to play, and
There's
sucked
a
up plenty
grind.
of hours as we tried to perfect our tricks.
Oh, he stacked it.
also had just the right level of absurdity.
Well, they call it in
with a bunch of
skateboarding,
cheat
beefing
codes
it.
and awesome
He
unlockable
beefed.
characters.
Got beef, anyone? Got beef.
Number 4. Resident Evil 2.
You know what? I think that's the right spot for Resident Evil 2. I could honestly put all 3 Resident Evil games in here, but that wouldn't be fair. Well, not Survivor, that's number 4. But anyway, yes, Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 2 rather, had 2 discs, 2 different adventures. Well, they were pretty much the same adventure, but slightly different with both characters. An unlockable character, what's his name? Tofu, or whatever his name is. And a few other surprises. This encouraged speed running in the PS1 era, because the quicker you could beat the game with less saves, the better the rating you would get. And I found there to be a lot of replayability, because I'd always be trying to beat my times as a kid. Wonderful survival horror experience, this one. One of the best still to this day.
The first Resident Evil was a
there's a lovely Ada
genre-defining
Wong.
release, so it says a lot that its sequel absolutely outshines it.
Yeah, it slapped. Number 1 for the nostalgia, but this is the better game.
In the middle of being razed to the ground by zombies, Raccoon City as a setting is both well-defined and exceptionally frightening. Both
Just that
plotlines,
beginning
focusing
scene
on
running to the
newcomers
police
Leon
station,
Kennedy
so
and Claire
memorable.
Redfield, are filled with moments that had players on the edge of their seats and gripping their controllers in fear.
I will say this, now that I play Resident Evil 2 OG even a lot to this day, the backtracking outstays its welcome a little bit too much. I love how now in games like Resident Evil 4 Remake, it's a little bit more of a linear experience. You don't have to keep going back all the time to the same locations, or at the very least, if you do, it makes sense in that time and it's not frustrating. So I'm glad they've evolved from here now, I have to admit.
That's because its visuals were so strong, its violence so alarming, and its scenarios so well crafted that it was impossible to not let the fear take hold. Resident Evil 2 was another glorious
These
step forward
cutscenes
for the
are beautiful.
survival horror genre. Number 3. Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Oh, they put Castlevania Symphony. I was worried that this wasn't going to hit the top 20 list. I'm glad it has. I don't need to mention too much about this. One of the most definitive Castlevania experiences, mixing action platforming with light RPG elements, weapon collection, great bosses, a wonderful experience, puzzles, but I don't feel like the puzzles are too overwhelming. Yeah, what a great game. I remember I saw this on PlayStation Australia magazine. They only gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. And they didn't, this is why the game's not worth a whole lot. I don't think they sold many copies. I actually picked this up in 1998, excuse me, from the clearance bin. I think I bought this for like $49.99 back in, and you know, most games were almost $100 back then. So this sort of developed a cult following after it was discontinued. And now look, it just gets released and re-released and re-released. Yeah, a worthy spot at number 3, I think. And also a 2D game on a 3D console.
Many franchises have entries that forever
Goes to
change
show
them,
that cutting-edge
steering them
graphics
towards
are not always
world-renowned
important
or
for
causing them to
a
evolve
great
for the
game.
better. For Castlevania, That entry was undoubtedly Symphony of the Night. Konami took the gothic horror the series was known for and injected some Super Metroid DNA. As a result, Dracula's castle became a huge puzzle to solve.
Oh, the music was
mechanics were
fantastic.
swift and smooth, giving us quick-paced combat and traversal. There were even a few RPG touches within Alucard's arsenal. Sticking with the 2D also made it age much better than most games on the system. With a game this great, it's not surprising it helped establish the Metroidvania subgenre.
I think it's because it was such a 2D style, the performance was fantastic in this as well.
Number 2, Final Fantasy VII.
It makes me wonder if Metal Gear is going to be number 1. I think it almost seems obvious, right? But, look, I think Final Fantasy VII deserves the number 2 spot. I mean, number 8 arguably is a more grown-up story, but number 7 here, I think, basically put this on the commercial map, so to speak. Just the adventures of Cloud, ex-soldier, finding more out about himself as they try to take down the Shinra organization and save the planet. I mean, I could talk all day about this. It's a wonderful adventure, wonderful characters, heartfelt story. I didn't feel like, this is a rare occasion where I didn't feel like no voice acting, because there wasn't that much voice acting back then. Didn't make the story any less engaging. The text was all well written out. The music added, so even if you were struggling to read and follow, the music would sort of give you an indication of what you were supposed to feel. And it was a fun game and an emotional experience. Yeah, number 2, not even mad. Man, great attack spells, limit breaks.
If Square Enix hadn't chosen to remake it, Final Fantasy VII would still have legions of fans swooning over its greatness today.
Yeah, and well, I think they are, because I think the ATB system is still the most popular attack system in the Final Fantasy franchise to date. It seems like a lot of fans of the franchise just never wanted to let that go.
As you
I don't
probably
really blame
already
them.
know, it follows an ex-mercenary who helps an eco-terrorist group fight a greedy, world-killing organization, only for his troubled past to hunt him throughout. It's hard to think of a feature that wasn't praised upon release. As the first 3D game in the series,
Gosh,
its
it's
graphics
such a
were
good-looking game.
unbelievable. The depth of its story was almost unimaginably good, and the music revolutionized how vital a soundtrack could be to its game.
I got this game by chance too. I remember I traded, I think, some collectible cards, some phone cards, and a few other collectibles I had to have enough credit to get a copy of this from the markets. If I didn't see this at the markets by chance one afternoon, who knows if I would have even played this franchise today. It's a defining moment for me back in 1998. I did get into this game a year late. The good news was, once I beat this game, Final Fantasy VIII came out almost immediately.
For decades through fan adoration. Metal Gear
Yeah, was
Solid.
there any doubt?
There are no heroes.
Was there any doubt?
All the heroes I know are either dead or in prison.
Again, this is one game I used to play a lot and was very good at, but I'm not very good at anymore. However, I used to challenge myself to speedruns. I started off renting this, then I got a copy myself. 2 discs, wonderful action, wonderful storytelling, bosses. You know, I don't even know what to say, man, when it comes to these sort of like military games. I'm not very switched on in regards to discussing plot and all that kind of stuff. Forgive me. But when it comes to games, I know what I like, and I always liked this one.
A lot of franchises floundered during the dawn of 3D. Metal Gear was one that not only flourished, but influenced the entire video game
Konami
industry.
hit the mark back then.
It's
They got
Snake.
2 games in the
I'm front
top
of the
3.
disposal facility.
Excellent, Snake.
There weren't any other games around that told their stories as well as Metal Gear Solid did.
It was a
Players
cinematic.
were immediately grabbed by the espionage plot, most of which was delivered through riveting cinematic cutscenes, courtesy of creator Hideo Kojima's love for film.
It kind of reminds me of the Yakuza games today, because this is one of those games that had just as many cutscenes and as much dialogue as what the Yakuza franchise did, and it just probably just as much as what the gameplay was itself, if that makes sense.
Characters also felt deeper and more flawed than any other. That's all on top of its groundbreaking game.
Yeah, all the characters on this were like onions, hey? They had multiple layers, that's for sure.
Great, Metal Gear Solid's impact and quality can never be understated.
You're incredible. Like a movie hero or something.
What's your favorite game from Sony's original console?
Oh, I'm
Share
pretty
your
happy
thoughts
with
in
the list
comments. And be sure to
overall. I
subscribe
wouldn't
for
change
more
too
great
much,
videos
maybe just a
every
few
day.
here and there, but I'm not going to nitpick.
I just hadn't noticed it before.
There are certainly some other games that you could probably put on this list, but I think Watch Mojo pretty much got it right here. Thank you for a great list. Thank you, Damo, again for the suggestion. And that's another video done. Let me know what you would have added or removed down below. And we'll see you on the next video. Take care, everybody.